Hello and welcome back to Planet Coaster. We will be working on the games and entertainment section for the Renaissance Fair today. We're going to be starting off with the Archery Range, and it's not a full-size archery range. Again, this is more for like kids, young teens to go ahead and try a new skill they might not have tried so far. So obviously it's going to be a short shooting range, and also the target's going to be relatively low to the ground to try and avoid any misfires or prevent an arrow being launched across some of the park here. And there's going to be specific lanes that they're going to be targeting, and there's going to be multiple of these lanes as we go through. We're using some straw and hay to decorate the base floor here, and I'm using the flat roof as just a marquee so I can get everything laid out on top of that, and then I'll just sink it down, hide the floor, and get everything at a good level, and then we'll just fill it in with some dirt and things at this point. And I'm gonna go ahead and save that as a blueprint in case I ever need an archery range practice yard for any other build going forward, because I did enjoy how this thing turned out. I think it looks the part relatively nice. We also want to add some additional details around here and more games, more miscellaneous goodies to bump up right up against the jousting arena. And we will have an information booth here to try and slowly get people funneling into this area a little bit. And that's going to provide some nice movement of people throughout the game section. We'll also eventually have a drink stall down here. But first we're going to make a new wooden wall variant, and we'll use this wooden wall to section off a new game. And this game is a little bit more dangerous just because of how wildly people can aim on this. And this is going to be the throwing axe stall and throwing knife stall, and these are very common in Renaissance fairs. In fact, some will even have, ninja stars or javelin throwing. They have a lot of different types of throwing weapons that you could potentially use in these situations. But generally what they do is you have a set group of about 4 people or so on each side, and you either give them axes, you can give them knives, you can give them anything of that assortment. And they have just targets on the back wall at a decent length away. To get this whole area to read, that's actually probably farther than you might see in real life, but it gets the point across. We even have to extend the wall along the archery range just so no stray arrows can risk injuring any of the people in this back section here. And we'll even cover up some of the kind of round columns there for the targets. We put little wheels for the targets as well to give some type of texture over that white outline from the column base. So again, more dirt pathing. We'll add a new feature as well, and this is going to be a maypole. And maypoles are nice, these colorful, vibrant elements that you might occasionally find in a Renaissance fair. And it's pretty hard to do in Planet Coaster. We don't have really anything quite as pliable as like a piece of cloth string or anything like that. So we're going to have to use wooden planks here, and just doing a quarter of it, copying it around to make a nice cone shape. And then we'll just dye these a whole bunch of bright and different colors going all the way around. And of course, as the guest would grab the ends and walk and weave under it, it would end up coloring the pole all the way down. Decided that the boards were a little too wide facing that direction, and it looked a little too weird, so we are rotating them 90 degrees just so it's on the short edge now, and I think it helps the proportion a little bit. Sadly, it's a static kind of thing. It might even look a little bit like a Christmas pine tree, or just in shape. Nothing we can do about that, but I just wanted some more little detail elements along here. This is another common thing. This is just a simple test your strength kind of mechanism where you go up with a mallet, you hit a lever, it hits a weight up a slider, and depending on where that goes, it gives either a funny or interesting response to gauge how strong of a person you are. We will be, of course, making a lever point here and trying to color it just a little bit different so it stands out. A white marker that'll go up the actual shaft there. The bell is going to be housed in this little roof covering that will just dye white for contrast's sake. And we'll also try to design a little mallet here. My girlfriend came up with this design just because I was blanking on what to use, and what we decided to do is partially sink in, because it's a top heavy mallet, right? We decided to sink in a wooden block and then just attach the large sword handle to it, and it works. It's definitely a large kind of unwieldy thing that you'll definitely find in these type of little game areas. And it just brings even more color to the area and park, which is a great thing to have. One of the final little game sections in this area, this is the tomato toss. This is where, say, a jester or someone who will mock you from a short distance away, you are then given a whole basket full of tomatoes, and you are tasked with throwing it at the fool at the end of this gap here for your entertainment. It's actually harder than it sounds. A tomato does not really fly very well. It's not like throwing a baseball. They're squishy. Sometimes they even give you rotten tomatoes. So it can be quite the fun challenge, and the witty response from the jester can be it's pretty funny watching him make fun of your friends. It's not funny on your end if you're the one being made fun of, but I've had some good memories of friends being taunted while missing very poorly for a good couple minutes at the gesture there. So we have some shrubs going in and some trees just to kind of bring in the area, painting the ground, of course, to make it look a little bit more worn, and some rock placement. And then the final bit of the speed build section is this. This is going to be the large piece, and this is a maze, a hedge maze. Mazes are fairly common in Ren fairs. Generally, they might be plywood walls. They might be made out of shrubs occasionally, depending if they have the budget to actually trim the shrubs and allow them to do that. And it's a pretty interesting thing. It's mainly for kids and stuff, but this one, of course, is not going to function. Our guests aren't going to use it like a proper maze. They're not going to get lost in it. Their pathing is too powerful for just a simple little thing like this. And it's a relatively quick building process. I lay down the pathing first, and that's just to establish kind of a workable path, so I know what's going to be working here. In hindsight, I should have just aligned everything to a grid and then ran a path after that, because doing it this way was a little bit longer. It's made up of a whole bunch of little individual buildings here, and going back in to delete the wall pieces took a little bit amount of time, probably more so than needed. But when it's late at night and you want to try and get something built in a reasonable pace, this is kind of the stuff you come up with in Planet Coasters. So there's obviously some efficiencies that I still need to get better at in this game, and we'll continue to strive for as the series progresses and as we finish up this park itself. Just a couple more episodes probably to go. Now, the terrain does slope a little bit, so some of these areas do become a little cockeyed and weird. Most of that is corrected and fixed off camera, and some framing shrubs will tie it in a little bit better, and some finer little details. There is a little souvenir shop in the far back there, and that will just allow our guests to go through it in a nice kind of half arcing path around the maze, and will give the illusion of people going through the actual maze itself. I do, as always, enjoy getting our buildings somewhat interactable with the guests. as always. Like even in the games area, how we have shops integrated and hidden amongst those, it's best to get people in and through. And here I'm testing, making sure people are even going in. It took a while for them to even want to go to this hat shop. I don't know why. Maybe the other people already had a place to go, so they weren't really caring about it. And then it took a while for their pathing to realize, oh, there's a new store open, we can go there. Here, at this point, we skipped ahead after placing some trees, and we'll be working on the final little entryway touches for the maze itself. There'll be a blue entrance and a red entrance. If you go into the blue side, your objective, of course, is coming out of the red side. And if you go into the red side, your objective, of course, is to try and come out on the blue side. And that way, it just feels like it's a proper maze. The goal isn't necessarily to find the hat shop. That's just there more so to get the people through. The goal is just to get in and out of the other entrance. Now, these do mark where the entrance and exits are, so it does make it a little bit easier. You don't want people get lost and frustrated in these things, so that's why we need kind of taller elements here. And also, it can trick you. You could be thinking that you're going in the right direction, but there's a couple dead ends right near the entrance there, so you can get lost nonetheless. At this point, we're going to go ahead and finish up the speed build section and take a look at it in real time so you guys can kind of absorb in some of the details. Okay, so here we are with the low FPS that Planet Coaster is providing us at the moment. Let's go ahead and take a look at the archery range and slots here. You can see it's a decent distance. You know, they're going to be given underpower bows. You know, nothing to you know, really strain or test, you know, your draw strength by any means. You know, kids will be shooting these things, so they need to be relatively safe, and it's just to test your accuracy with these measly arrows that are bent and really just poor quality all around. But this distance itself, I mean, to get a bullseye, this looks to be about probably 40 yards or so. Would still be relatively challenging, and I think it's a successful little range here. We have, you know, some nice higher walls. As long as you're pointing down, you pretty much have no risk of shooting off to the sides. We have the upper kind of tarps here just to prevent any arrows going off. They are probably blunted. You know, they just need to be able to sink into some hay, so these would be able to, if they're just leather, probably shear off an arrow and deflect them downwards, so nothing really goes off into the jousting arena. The hay, of course, adding just a little bit of detail, but also more polygons to the save. It's not something I suggest doing a whole lot, but it's just something I wanted in there nonetheless. Over here, this is the target range for like the axes and the daggers to be thrown and hit at. You could probably do a couple people on each side here, and as long as they throw straight and true, you're fine. You know, there is a dividing wall, so you can keep the weapons separate, so you're not kind of running across and have to worry about interrupting the axe throwers with the throwing knives and vice versa. Here is a little drink stall just to try and keep people coming down here in this direction to the end. We have a little bit of a campsite here just for some decoration and some little fillers here and there. And this stuff, of course, just sells the overall liveliness of the park, I think. This is the tomato toss with a little jester sign here. Added the food kind of element along here. You can, of course, throw apples, though I guess these would be technically tomatoes. Maybe some slices of watermelon. A banana would be pretty funny to definitely hit someone in the face with. A little bit of a basket here, so the elements don't just like roll off the sides. And from there, we move over to the more wide clearing section for the standard games. This is the test your strength kind of area here with the hammer and lever to knock up the weight. our 2 Maypoles, just bringing in even more color. I decided to even leave the backside of the tester strength thing open just so we can see some more color as well. And it just goes, you know, blue being the weakest all the way up to red being the strongest. And then at that point, this right here is the maze, the main thing that we were working on. I'll go ahead and unpause the game a little bit so we have some movement going on in the background. And we have the red side and the blue side. These are quarter tiled buildings. Pretty interesting to make these. The best thing to do is to just split a wall down the middle and use that as your base tile to copy around. And you know, you don't want to do this too much. Each individual little piece here, of course, does take up a decent amount of polys, and that just adds up over time. Here is an above look at the maze. You can see a guest currently going in there right now. Really liking the scenery of the maze itself. The paths are a little ununiform, kind of a shame. Would have probably liked to go back in and tweak some things myself. But overall, I think it just fills this space rather nicely. And it's nice to have kind of a larger green space every now and then just to break up everything else going on in the park from the buildings and the rides. You can even tuck in little elements like this in the little areas in between the trees. Some type of tree here just for some decorative pieces. You'll find a lot of trees interacting with the main pathways in Renaissance fairs. In fact, a lot of them have a lot of overgrowth, so you don't really, you know, have to. There should be a lot more trees, actually. It should almost be always in the shade, depending on how cleared out they have it. And then we just have some more stalls. We have a knight little guarding this area or something like that, just for effect. And I think that's going to do us for this episode. So we finished another little chunk of our park. Next episode, we will try to finish this whole back area here. We'll just have a few more shops to do, and then it'll just be a little small vendors going around. Probably with a blacksmith in this area as well. And then from there, we'll have another episode or two going in and detailing out this section. And I think that'll be pretty much it for this series. So thank you guys so much for watching, as always. If you guys enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like so I know how much you enjoy this kind of stuff for the future. Go ahead and subscribe if you're new. You can go ahead and check out the other videos as well to see how all of this is made. And until then, I'll see you guys in some more Planet Coaster soon.